What if the real threat is hidden deep inside your abdomen, silently wrapping itself around your liver, pancreas, and other vital organs, raising your risk of diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver disease, chronic inflammation, and even cognitive decline? And what if most people are fighting it the wrong way? Millions of people are trying harder than ever to lose belly fat. They cut calories, skip meals, follow strict diets, and step on the scale every morning, hoping to see progress. Yet the stubborn bulge around the waist often refuses to disappear. Why? Because the scale is measuring the wrong battle. Today, you'll discover why visceral fat behaves differently from ordinary body fat, why traditional dieting often fails against it, and what science has revealed about the biological signals that determine whether your body stores fat or burns it. But first, imagine two people standing side by side. They weigh exactly the same. They have similar waist measurements. They look equally healthy. Yet inside their bodies, a completely different story is unfolding. One person has relatively little visceral fat. The other has large deposits surrounding their internal organs. To a physician examining advanced scans, these two individuals may appear years apart biologically. That's because visceral fat isn't simply stored energy. It's active tissue. In many ways, it behaves more like an organ than a storage compartment. Unlike the fat beneath your skin, visceral fat constantly communicates with the rest of your body. Unfortunately, much of what it says is bad news. Researchers have discovered that visceral fat releases inflammatory compounds into the bloodstream. These compounds interfere with insulin function, increase stress signals, and create an internal environment that encourages even more fat accumulation. This creates a vicious cycle. The more visceral fat you carry, the more harmful signals it produces. The more harmful signals it produces, the easier it becomes to store additional visceral fat. And this is exactly where many weight loss programs begin to fail, because they focus exclusively on calories while ignoring biology. For decades, people have been told that weight loss is simple. Eat less, move more, lose fat. On paper, that sounds logical, and initially, it often works. But then something strange happens. Progress slows, then stops. People become frustrated. Many blame themselves. They assume they lack discipline. But that's not necessarily true. Your body evolved during a time when food shortages were common. To survive those shortages, humans developed powerful biological systems designed to protect against starvation. When calorie intake drops significantly, your body notices. Metabolism slows down. Hunger hormones increase. Cravings become stronger. Energy expenditure often decreases. Even unconscious movement tends to decline. In other words, your body begins fighting back. Not because it's malfunctioning, because it's doing exactly what it evolved to do. This helps explain why two people following the same diet can experience very different results. The human body is not a calculator. It's a complex adaptive system. And when it comes to visceral fat, those adaptations become even more important. Because visceral fat responds to much more than calories alone. It responds to hormones. It responds to inflammation. It responds to movement. It responds to sleep. And it responds to food quality. One of the most important players in this story is insulin. Think of insulin as a delivery driver. Whenever you eat carbohydrates, insulin helps transport glucose from your bloodstream into your cells where it can be used for energy. Under healthy conditions, this process works beautifully. But problems arise when cells become less responsive to insulin. This condition is known as insulin resistance. When insulin resistance develops, the pancreas compensates by producing more insulin. For a while, this helps keep blood sugar under control. But elevated insulin comes with consequences. One of the biggest is increased fat storage, particularly around the abdomen. This is why many people with insulin resistance notice their waistline expanding even when they aren't dramatically overeating. Their bodies are receiving stronger fat storage signals. Over time, another vicious cycle develops. More visceral fat contributes to insulin resistance. More insulin resistance encourages additional visceral fat accumulation. And unless that cycle is interrupted, meaningful progress becomes increasingly difficult. This is where many people unknowingly waste years. They focus entirely on eating less, yet they never address the underlying biological signals keeping fat locked in place. Fortunately, researchers have identified several strategies that may help improve this situation. But before discussing them, we need to talk about another major factor: inflammation. Imagine a small campfire burning in your backyard. One evening isn't a problem, but if that fire burns continuously for years, the damage begins to accumulate. Chronic inflammation works in a similar way. Unlike acute inflammation, which helps the body heal after injury, chronic inflammation quietly lingers, sometimes for decades. Visceral fat is one of the major contributors. It continuously releases inflammatory compounds into circulation. These compounds affect blood sugar regulation, cardiovascular health, energy production, and overall metabolic function. Researchers increasingly view chronic inflammation as a central factor in many age-related diseases: heart disease, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, and potentially even cognitive decline. This helps explain why visceral fat is considered far more dangerous than the softer fat stored beneath the skin. The location matters. The biology matters. And the inflammatory environment matters. But here's where things get interesting. Scientists have discovered that food does far more than provide calories. Food provides information. Every meal sends instructions to your body: store energy, burn energy, repair tissue, increase inflammation, reduce inflammation. Those signals matter. And one category of compounds appears especially important: polyphenols. Polyphenols are naturally occurring compounds found in fruits, vegetables, herbs, tea, and many plant foods. For years, they were considered nutritional extras. Today, researchers view them much differently. Why? Because polyphenols appear to influence several biological pathways linked to visceral fat. They may help improve insulin sensitivity. They may help reduce oxidative stress. They may help support healthier inflammatory responses. And since visceral fat is driven by multiple biological processes at once, influencing several pathways simultaneously may be more effective than targeting only one. One of the best sources of these compounds can be found in almost every grocery store: berries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, blackberries. These colorful fruits contain powerful compounds called anthocyanins. Anthocyanins are responsible for the deep red, purple, and blue colors found in berries. Researchers have studied them for their potential effects on blood sugar regulation and inflammation. Now, no single food can erase years of visceral fat accumulation. That's important to remember. There are no magic foods, no miracle shortcuts, but repeatedly giving your body healthier signals can gradually shift its internal environment in a positive direction. And that's how lasting change usually happens, not through one dramatic action, but through hundreds of small decisions repeated consistently over time. Another food researchers frequently discuss is green tea. At first glance, it seems simple, just leaves and hot water. Yet green tea contains compounds known as catechins, particularly EGCG. Research suggests these compounds may support fat oxidation, improve metabolic efficiency, and influence pathways associated with aging and obesity. Does green tea magically melt fat? No, but that's missing the point. The goal isn't finding a miracle solution. The goal is creating an environment inside your body that supports healthier metabolism. Green tea may contribute to that environment. Think of visceral fat as being protected by several locked doors. No single key opens every door, but each healthy habit unlocks another barrier. Eventually, the body becomes more willing to access stored fat for energy. Dietary fat is another area where scientific understanding has changed dramatically. For decades, fat was blamed for nearly everything. People avoided eggs, avoided nuts, avoided olive oil. Supermarkets filled with low-fat products. Yet obesity rates continued climbing. Today, scientists understand that the story is far more complicated. Not all fats are created equal. Some fats appear to support metabolic health rather than damage it. One of the most studied examples is extra virgin olive oil. Unlike highly refined oils, extra virgin olive oil contains naturally occurring compounds associated with healthier inflammatory responses and improved cellular function. Researchers often point to Mediterranean populations where olive oil has been a dietary staple for centuries. Historically, these populations experienced lower rates of many metabolic diseases despite consuming significant amounts of dietary fat. The lesson isn't that calories don't matter. The lesson is that food quality matters too. Two meals can contain similar calories while producing very different biological responses. And when visceral fat is involved, those differences become increasingly important. Another nutritional tool comes from omega-3 fatty acids. These healthy fats are found in foods such as salmon, sardines, trout, mackerel, walnuts, and flax seeds. Researchers have studied omega-3s extensively because of their relationship with inflammation, cardiovascular health, and metabolic function. Remember the chronic inflammatory fire we discussed earlier? Omega-3s appear to influence many of the pathways involved in that process. By supporting healthier inflammatory responses, they may help create conditions that make metabolic improvement easier. Again, this doesn't happen overnight. Visceral fat often develops over years. Reducing it requires consistently changing the signals your body receives. But even if inflammation improves and insulin sensitivity improves, there's still another piece of the puzzle. Your body needs a reason to access stored fat. It needs a signal that energy is required, and that signal primarily comes from movement. More specifically, from your muscles. Many people assume all exercise affects body fat equally. Research suggests otherwise. When scientists compared different exercise approaches, one pattern appeared repeatedly. More challenging activity often produced greater reductions in visceral fat than very low-intensity alternatives. That doesn't mean everyone needs extreme workouts. It simply means the body responds differently when it receives a stronger demand for energy. When muscles work harder, they require more fuel. That increased demand triggers a cascade of biological responses. Insulin sensitivity improves. Energy regulation improves. Mitochondrial activity increases. Mitochondria are often called the power plants of your cells because they convert fuel into usable energy. The healthier these systems become, the more efficiently your body can utilize stored energy, including visceral fat. This is one reason many experts now view exercise as more than a calorie-burning tool. Exercise changes biology. It changes signaling. It changes how the body manages energy. And many of those benefits continue long after the workout ends. One of the biggest mistakes people make is relying entirely on the scale. Imagine someone starts exercising consistently. Their energy improves. Their waist measurement shrinks. Their clothes fit better. But the scale barely moves. Many assume nothing is working. Some quit. Unfortunately, that's often the moment real progress is beginning. The scale measures total body weight. It doesn't reveal how much visceral fat has been lost. It doesn't show improvements in insulin sensitivity. It doesn't measure increases in muscle mass. Some of the most important health improvements occur where the scale cannot see them. Whenever people hear the phrase higher intensity, they often imagine brutal workouts. That's not necessary. For many people, a brisk walk is an excellent starting point. The key is progression. Walk faster. Add hills. Increase resistance. Extend duration gradually. As your fitness improves, your body adapts. What once felt difficult becomes easier. That's when you increase the challenge again. Not dramatically, gradually, consistently. Now let's connect everything. Most people search for one secret answer. One food, one supplement. One workout, one shortcut. But visceral fat reduction rarely works that way. The best results occur when multiple positive signals start working together. Better food quality helps reduce inflammation. Improved insulin sensitivity supports healthier metabolism. Regular movement increases energy demand. Muscles become more metabolically active. The body gradually shifts from storing energy to using energy. Instead of receiving messages that encourage fat storage, it begins receiving messages that support fat utilization. This is why moderate improvements across several areas often outperform extreme changes in a single area. The body responds to patterns. And when enough positive patterns align, progress accelerates. So what should you actually do? Focus on food quality rather than starvation. Eat more colorful fruits and vegetables. Include berries regularly. Use healthy fats like extra virgin olive oil. Consume omega-3 rich foods consistently. Consider green tea as a supportive habit. Then focus on movement. Walk regularly. Challenge yourself gradually. Stay consistent. Remember, adaptation, not punishment, is the goal. Finally, remember that reducing visceral fat isn't simply about appearance. It's about improving what's happening inside your body. It affects blood sugar regulation, inflammation, cardiovascular health, energy levels, long-term wellness. The biggest lesson from modern visceral fat research is surprisingly simple. Your body is constantly listening. Every meal sends information. Every workout sends information. Every lifestyle choice sends information. Over time, those signals shape your metabolism. If you've struggled with stubborn belly fat despite working hard, it doesn't automatically mean you're lazy or undisciplined. It may simply mean you're focusing on only one part of a much larger picture. The good news? Those signals can change. One meal at a time, one workout at a time, one day at a time. And when enough positive changes begin working together, your body often becomes capable of achieving results that once seemed impossible. Not because of a miracle, not because of a hack, but because you finally started working with your biology instead of against it.